Survived. I'm your host Holly Martin. Today's episode will include a survival story from a brave and heroic snow safety expert. Our story tonight comes from an experienced cross-country skier who saved her partner's life from hypothermia. Please welcome Emily.
It's great to be here, Holly. Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. Now Emily, please share the story of how you and your partner survived.
For this story to make sense, I need to start from the beginning. It started off in the Thredbo Alpine during a day-long cross-country ski trip. I have been cross-country skiing so many times. I have all the equipment and all the knowledge to ski safely, but I just couldn't control the weather. When we set out to leave, it was nice. The sky was clear and the sun was out. It was about 2 to 3 hours into the trip where we realised that we could no longer locate ourselves on the map. We could not see any landmarks or signs and did not have a signal to reach a ski patrol. The weather suddenly turned bad and my partner and I were left stranded.
That sounds terrifying.
It was absolutely terrifying. This is when my partner began to panic. I felt tight in the chest, but I needed to stay calm as I was the most experienced in snow safety and knew that I was going to have to be the one to get us out of the situation alive. I began looking through the backpack that we had run to check what supplies we had taken and then figure out what our next step was going to be. The sky had become darker and as the temperature dropped, the snow began to fall. The supplies that I had were matches and kindling for a small fire, a small tent with sleeping bags, food to last us till the next day, and sets of warm, dry clothes.
I can't begin to imagine how cold you would have been.
Yes, it did begin to start getting very cold. I thought our only hope of surviving is to set up camp and wait for the sun to come out. It was around 5 o'clock at night as well, so it did begin to start getting very dark. My partner had been complaining a bit of how cold he was, but I did not take much notice until he began to shiver. As soon as I saw this, the thought of hypothermia rushed into my mind. Treating someone with hypothermia while you're in the middle of the snow is a difficult thing to be done, but I knew that it was possible. The first step I took was to quickly put up a tent and set up the sleeping bags. By the time this was done, my partner was looking worse than before. It was at the point where I had to undress him and put dry clothes on to ensure he had no wet items of clothing on. I put up the tent and put him in a sleeping bag to get him warm again, but for some reason he was just too cold. It would have been easily close to negative 20 degrees and my partner was really struggling. I had one more idea left, which was to make a fire with the kindling I had. I really only had one shot at doing this as I did not have a huge amount of kindling or matches. And as soon as the kindling was wet, it would be useless. I went to the tent for a minute to check up once again on my partner. This is when I noticed he had the umbles. The umbles are a set of physical things that a person does when they are suffering hypothermia. For example, mumbles, grumbles, stumbles, bumbles. My partner was struggling to say anything, and when I asked him to try and hold a torch, he was unable to clasp his hand around it. At this point, I knew that my partner was suffering from mild hypothermia, but would soon be suffering from moderate hypothermia. I thought as long as I could stop it from getting severe, I may have a chance of keeping him alive.
Oh my god, how did you survive?
Thanks Holly, this snow safety kit could be the difference between life or death. The safety kit comes fully equipped with a Swiss Army knife, kindling, fire lighter, wet bix for keeping the moisture off your wood, 4 times hand warmers, a pop-up tent, light sleeping bags and a satellite phone. The whole kit costs $99.99. But wait! If you're one of the first 100 callers, you get an extra 4 times hand warmers and a foil blanket. Wow, that's a bargain. No wondering why you need so much gear. Well, you can never be too careful. I know I'd never want to be lost in the snow without one of these bad boys. Get your Snow Safety Kit 1000 today. Wow.
Wow, I wouldn't go anywhere without one of those. Now back to that question, how did you survive?
That's a good question. I knew I had to act fast as my partner was getting colder. I began making the fire by stomping in snow to make a flat surface. I also collected flat rocks and wet pieces of timber that I could dry out with the fire. I positioned rocks in the snow so my kindling would stay dry and arranged it in a teepee shape. I then lit a match and placed it under the teepee. For a second, I thought the match had gone out. I started to blow the kindling to try and get the fire to start. As soon as the flames began to get bigger, I felt a gush of hope going through my body. My hands were bright pink and my face was burning from the cold. Before I brought my partner out, I tried to regain my own heat from the fire. The wood on the sides had begun to dry out and I was able to build up the fire. I then dragged my partner to the fire. He was not in a stable position as he was now moving towards moderate hypothermia. I knew that he was going to need medical attention. This meant I was either going to have to transport him to civilization or have to wait until we were found. Neither of these options were ideal, but I was going to have to choose one by the morning. I was able to keep the fire going until I saw the sun coming up. It had stopped snowing during the building of the fire, so it was easy to keep going. My partner and I sat in front of the fire for the whole night. I tried to keep him warm, but none of his hypothermia seemed to go away.
Were you found?
Yes, it was around 7 o'clock when we were found by the snow patrol.
How did they know you had gone missing?
I had given the times that we were leaving and returning to the hotel we were staying in. As soon as the staff had realised that we hadn't returned, they notified Snow Patrol, alerting them that we may be stuck in the snow.
That's lucky. And all people who are planning on going cross-country skiing must always alert the local police station or somebody close by and trustworthy who is not going on the trip.
That's a good tip for sure.
Did your partner recover?
Yes, the Snow Patrol transported him to the hospital where he spent a week in recovery.
Is he with us today?
Yes, of course.
If you could give us one piece of advice to anybody who plans on taking a trip to the snow, what would it be?
I think the most important thing to remember is to travel in groups more than 3. That is something that could save somebody's life. I know from my experience it would have been a lot easier and safer if another person had come so they could have gone and find help.
Thank you so much for joining us and how they survived. We appreciate you coming in and telling us your life-saving story.
Anytime.
Join us on Channel 9 at 7:30 every Wednesday for more.